Privacy concerns have changed the landscape of digital marketing forever. How do you pivot with the loss of third-party data in the near future? Today on The Edge.
Go! Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. Powered by your digital marketing pioneers, Site Strategics. This week's featured guests are Joe Martinez and Michelle Morgan from Paid Media Pros. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
Welcome back to The Edge. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Each week, we bring you some amazing guests to talk about trending digital marketing topics and news. We unpack a key marketing topic for our digital marketing audience. So whether or not you're part of a firm, agency, or a freelancer, this show is for you. Be sure to check out all the videos and audio and much more over at edgeofthewebradio.com. Edge of the Web is brought to you by Site Strategics, the title sponsor of our show. We're pioneers in the agile digital marketing methodology. Our core specialties are SEO, SEM, social media, conversion rate optimization, and the omni-channel marketing methodology. Agile marketing that's actually results-based marketing that works. So if you're interested in what we can do for you, just simply give us a shout at 877-736-4932 or 877-SEO4Web. Just want to let you know who will be coming up on the show here in the next few episodes. We're going to be talking to Eli Schwartz about product SEO. Barry Adams and Jonah Alderson are going to be coming on for a future Scrum here. Also, be sure to check out all of the recent videos and shows, but more recently, Olga Zarzechna, as well as Core Web Vital discussions with Victor Zitromiski. If you're interested in being part of the show, just drop us a line at info@edgeofthewebradio.com. Be sure to set your reminders on YouTube to get notified when we post those videos. Also, hey, join the Edge Nation newsletter. If you text to the number 22828, the word Edge Talk, you can join right there. We want to extend an invite to join us. And hey, we're sending this out on a regular basis, obviously free of charge. It's a free newsletter that covers everything we're talking about the show, as well as much more. And on top of that, we're dropping a useful pro tip in there. Simply sign up for the newsletter at edgeofthewebradio.com today or sitestrategics.com. Let's throw that one in there. You can sign up there as well. Make sure that you check out all of our weekly news podcasts covering the most recent digital marketing news and Google updates. We're dropping it every Tuesday to help you navigate this week in your week in digital marketing. A continued guest host on the news is the indomitable Morty Oberstein. So with all that aside, let's meet this week's industry experts. So let's introduce you to Joe Martinez. He's worked in the PPC industry since the beginning of time. No, beginning of 2012. He's been named a top 25 most influential PPC expert from PPC Hero from 2017 to 2020. He's spoken in industry-leading conferences such as SMX, HeroConf, PubCon, Sempo, and much more. He's also a regular contributor to Search Engine Land, Marketing Land, and WordStream. He's also written for Social Media Examiner, Clicks Marketing, PPC. I'm just not going to say the rest of this because you know what? Now it looks like you're bragging a bit. You're all over the freaking map.
Always.
He's also the most frequent flyer here for a guest on Edge of the Web. Dude, this is your third time here, fourth time on the show.
Yeah, third time in person.
Third time in person. Why are you abusing yourself this way?
Got someone who lives around the area, so I guess we're friends. I guess we kind of work together. So
so you drug her in, right?
Yeah,
I
yep,
see.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's my excuse, but I don't invite her every time.
Yeah, this is only my second time on the show.
You guys talk about that. I don't know what that decision making was.
Hey, Michelle, let's meet up. Hey, Aaron, I'm going to be in town.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming back for the fourth time, actually. And her we're speaking of is Michelle Morgan. And let's give you a bio on her real quick. She started in PPC in 2010, won the SMX Speaker of the Year Award in 2018, was named number one most influential PPC expert from Wait a minute. She was number one.
Yeah, I was number three.
Number 3 that year.
Oh.
Yeah, you've been on the show a lot, but I got that top spot.
Dang. There's some bragging rights there. That was from PPC Hero in 2020. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
She's also a regular speaker at industry shows such as SMX, HeroConf, PubCon, in Pro, Austin, and Florida, as well as others. And she's also a regular contributor to Search Engine Journal, Clicks Marketing, WordStream, and others. So, all things being equal, they evidently talk quite a bit.
Embarrassingly so.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they also have a fantastic YouTube channel, Paid Media Pros. Their organization is Paid Media Pros, and can't say enough about the amount of content and the great instruction that they provide on the platform. It is literally it's almost a college course in a particular manner. Honestly, it should be because we don't learn any of this in college, right?
Right.
I got good stories on that. It comes back to like, how'd you get into this industry? And I still say the college, university I went to still does not teach this.
No.
They have digital stuff and they mention it. It's just not an actual course. So it's like, we hear that from all the time of like people learn more from the channel than what they did in actual school when they had a marketing degree, which is cool.
Right. That's right. There are some colleges that I'm aware of that are starting to teach analytics and user behavior on the digital user behavior and a bit of social media, but nowhere near what a college student should be, or a student coming out of college should be prepared for in digital marketing. There's such a gap. There's such a huge difference than what is currently happening right now, right?
Yeah. I think there's a lot that could be taught, the theories behind either paid ads, analytics, understanding user behavior. I mean, even SEO stuff, which,
Hey! Wow, she threw down in like 3 minutes.
Sure did.
What the hell was that?
Thanks for having me. Never see you again.
I owe her $5 now.
Damn. Okay.
But there's a lot that you could be taught theory-wise that I think colleges are hopefully getting into and kind of teaching you the fundamentals about how to think about things. But I will say, at least somewhat in their defense, we've even talked about things in the past of types of content to put out and all that sort of thing. It's like there's certain levels of it that if you put it together in a way that you have prepped a college course,
right,
and it's as hands-on as our videos are going to be,
right,
by the time you take that for the second year, the information in it is going to be obsolete because the interface has changed, the settings have changed, all this kind of stuff. Like there's too many things that change.
Right.
So they just need to teach the underlying theory so that when you get into it, you can say like, okay, I at least know what this strategy is meant to be overall. And then like the nuts and bolts of actually making it happen are always going to be different anyway. But
right.
They definitely need to get more into how to engage with people online because that's where businesses need to go. And like I got a marketing degree at the business school that had almost nothing to do with computers, like almost nothing, and which is a big miss. I mean, that was granted 10 years ago, but still.
But that even shows you right there. And you certainly know that marketing degrees, concept of marketing is still entrenched in traditional, conventional marketing.
Absolutely.
And there is a good space of brand understanding and how brand actually affects persuasion of consumers, right?
Totally.
But there's no tactical understanding inside of the digital space. But you're absolutely right, is that understanding that you should be able to control an audience as opposed to where the audience management tool is inside of Facebook. That's where they should be armed with it, understanding how the segmentation of audiences work, right? So then you can actually it's kind of like learning code in a way, is understanding syntax.
Sure.
That means you can really understand all the different areas of all the different languages of code, right?
Yeah, and I wish I can go back to college. I mean, I was a broadcasting major, so being in the studio like this is cool for me. But
that's why. That's why.
That's why he always comes back. It's like, you guys just have cool toys. Can't care what we're talking
He
about.
just wants to play in the sandbox. All right.
Pretty much.
But I wish I just learned more about overall branding back then, because I mean, during the COVID year and what we've seen changes with the system of, cookies going away and everything like that, and how it's changing. It's like, well, if people have strong brands, they're probably not going to get hurt as much. You know, it's having people come directly to your website or using advertising to build a brand that's going to make people want to sign up for your email list. Just go directly to your website. That's valuable. Well, I think that's the important part. And it goes back to old school branding when there was no digital analytics to track it all. So it's like, it's all good brand building.
It's all foundational. But you're absolutely right, is that I think just looking at how trending digital marketing has been and how FOMO digital marketing has been just going after tactics without a good reason. It's just a, hey, there's Twitch over there. Hey, let's go over and do some Vimeo work over here. Let's go over and do some Vines over here, just because everything's moving that direction.
Yeah.
It's so topical as opposed to foundational. So having a foundational concept of branding and consumer messaging, right, needs to be there. Understanding having the understanding of that digital consumer and what that we call them new media digital audience, a new media audience that's actually interacting so much in the digital space now, right? You're consuming multiple screens, you're consuming multiple engagements all over the place. Everything's multiple devices, and we are now the level of digital consumers that you have to be there in one way, shape, or form, but the message has to be consistent, has to be striking that brand approach, because loyalty is the coin of the realm now. Authentic engagement is the coin of the realm, right?
Yeah. And I would say that even, like, I agree with everything that you said. And in addition to that, just being someplace for the sake of being there that shouldn't be the metric that you're trying to measure against. Like, it needs to be actual branding and getting people to engage with your business on a real level.
Yeah.
And I think that in the way that a lot of people chase what's new, like you were talking about, just making new things, being there for the sake of being there, I also think that people need to stop picking tactics just because of what's measurable all the time. Like, I think that one of the greatest things about paid search, paid social, all that kind of stuff, everything that we're in all the time, is that you can track everything up until now, because now we're at a point where all of the cookies are going away. It's getting harder and harder to track stuff. It's only going to get worse. And I think for the longest time, brands were making decisions about where to market exclusively based on what they could track and what performance was coming back from it. And they weren't actually thinking about the user experience aspect of it. And we've had too many conversations at this point with people like, okay, this tracking is going away. We know this channel's valuable, so we don't need to come out of it, but we need to come up with new metrics to say, this is beneficial versus not, because conversion tracking is going away or is being muddied and it's getting harder. And we're already on all these different platforms anyway. So attribution has always been a nightmare, and it's only going to get worse. So then what's the right cohesive approach to reach out to people on TikTok versus Snapchat versus Facebook versus Google? And how can we make a cohesive brand that we know is making a positive impact on the bottom line, but maybe we're not quite as focused on the nuts and bolts of the numbers in the platforms anymore, because it's just not there. It's not nearly as accurate as it used to be. So we have to adapt in that way as well.
All right. She finished up the show right there.
Yep.
We're all good.
Ta-da, I fixed it.
See you guys.
See y'all. See you the fifth time.
All right. So a couple of different directions here is that one, we're going to talk about clients for a second and where they should go in their maturation and understanding of digital marketing. Okay. I've had a number of interactions here just recently about breaking away from the addiction of ROI or metrics only, and actually knowing that there's brand assisted conversion, there's multi-touch conversion, that's a good deal more ethereal and not nearly as linear for a company to actually understand, right? So they do have to break away from that. I mean, that's a tough thing. We got them there. We got them understanding everything, but okay, now third party is going away. We're going to have to look at this a little bit differently. And the companies far and wide, small and large, are going to have to adopt a different both. A different mindset when it comes down to what digital marketing signals they can actually pay attention to. And a heck of a lot more of that is now the behavior on the owned properties as opposed to the external property. We talked about that when you were last here at the show.
That still holds true. Still, I think, incredibly relevant. But that's the hard part we have of convincing clients sometimes. They're so used to doing what they're doing. Is how come we can't see this anymore? How can we give this the information? I was like, I don't work for Facebook. I can't just say like, excuse me, Mr. Zuckerberg, can we get those metrics back?
I would like my conversion numbers back, please.
Yeah. And then also you should change the name of the company to Meta. I think that'd be a great idea.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Opening up so many different rabbit holes.
Oh my gosh! If you did, we can't open that.
So it was my fault. That's the reason.
Well, I appreciate
everything's your fault. Let's be clear. Yeah.
All right, we're going to create a meme just for that.
Yep.
All right, so you teed it up for me. I'm going to take a swing at it, and that's the privacy in marketing. All right, I'll pause on the client thing because I think that is a space that maybe as industries, clients understand, businesses understand shows like this, and what we're starting to say that they need to actually understand the topography a little bit differently now. Hopefully that will get across, but we do need to actually educate our audience that may not be prepared for what's about to happen in the next year and a half here. So Apple introduced a pop-up window for iPhones in April that asks people for the permission to be tracked. Google recently outlined plans to disable the tracking technology in the Chrome web browser. And Facebook said a couple months ago here that hundreds of its engineers are working on a new method of showing ads without relying on people's personal data. So this is a $350 billion industry. And it's being dismantled by big tech. Out of focus for privacy. All right. Apple cited the mantra of privacy has rolled out its tools to block marketers from tracking people, which they gave us. It's almost like they got us addicted to the crack.
Yeah.
And now they're taking it away, and they're reinventing the system so it could be so they can continue aiming ads at people without exploiting any of their personal data. Right. And personal data is email and social accounts and more intimate behavior monitoring. Right. Don't even get me into the smart speaker space, because that's a whole other level of creepy.
Yep, that's exactly why they're not plugged in.
Oh my gosh, our family is looking at this earnestly. We just saw a TED Talk here just recently of a lady that did an experiment with 18 smart devices in her home and had a tech engineer actually monitor a firewall and monitor all data packets that were coming out of her home. Of these devices. And would you believe every 4 seconds, these smart speakers were going back to the mothership.
Oh, sure.
Sending information. Unfreaking believable.
Yeah.
All right. So Google said it won't disable the cookies until it had a different way for marketers to be able to keep serving people targeted ads. And in March, they actually tried a method to be able to start organizing people into groups based on their interests. That's called FLoC. That's Federated Learning of Cohorts. Take a stop along the way here. What was your thoughts about when Google started to make that picture known for us? That, okay, it's not going to be third party. It's going to be, we're going to still organize people in behaviors and interests, but you're not going to have that information. Thoughts about FLoC?
It's one of those things that they rolled it out and I was like, what? Because I'll be honest, a lot of this stuff, even being in it day to day, kind of goes over my head. And it's like, okay, I get the nuances of everything. It's been a while since I've talked about FLoC or read about it for that matter. And I remember thinking like, okay, this sounds like a decent stopgap for a little bit, but it's not the solution to the problem. Like it's not going to fix all of it. But I'll be honest, FLoC is still, it's been out of my mind for a while at this point, because I don't think they've been promoting it, because I don't know.
No, they have not.
I want to.
Well, then I look at it too as like, what, Alphabet's the main company. I mean, they own the 2 largest search engines in the world, Google and YouTube. And the amount of searches, you can still get a pretty good understanding of who that person is, what types of videos they watch that they're interested in. I was trying to, just because we do research with our own channel login, somehow I got to the area of like, what interest am I bucketed in? And they'll show you what categories you fall in. You can say like, no, I don't want to see basketball videos anymore. No, I don't want to see this. You can see what they have you categorized.
Dude, it was all Star Wars, and you know it.
Well, on the ones that we shared with client research and stuff, it's all over the board. My personal one, it's just all Star Wars. But it's, you see how much information they get just by what YouTube videos you look in your bucket. So it's like they can have a pretty good understanding of even the specific software. And I was like, yep, that's when I was researching competitors for this client and everything. So it's like, they can still keep a pretty tight audience on you just with their own first party information.
Absolutely. And they can also know the content that's in each and every video and where you stop.
Totally.
And they can actually interpret from that, not get too creepy, but they can actually see your play behavior and actually navigate interest because of that. If you actually jump out of these particular types of videos at these spaces, I mean, those are behavioral signals that you're sending to the first party right there.
Yeah.
So what are marketers facing with privacy challenges? It's going to possibly be the largest issue for digital marketers, right?
Oh, I don't think possibly. I think it is going to be the largest issue because I think when it comes down to it, it's like you said, for the longest time, and I try to tell people this all the time, we have gotten away with a lot because everybody just was like, well, we can do this. And it's the whole like comic book superhero thing or like supervillain. Just because you can, does that mean you should?
Right.
Like now we're having a reckoning with all these things that maybe we shouldn't know most of the things about people. And I know that on an individual basis, a lot of like my extended family who just basically thinks I work for Geek Squad at this point.
Yeah, we're all IT.
Yeah, we're IT.
Can you fix my
IT.
computer?
No.
Yeah, it's like, I sure cannot. I do not know how to do that.
That's going to be the
don't-
truest statement this entire podcast.
Yeah.
Is all of our family thinks as digital marketers, we're all IT
We work
people.
at Geek Squad. Yeah. But like all the time they're like, I don't want you tracking stuff. It's like, I don't think you understand. I can't look you up. Right. I could target you based on some inferences that I make, but I can't look you up. I can't be like, oh, you liked this post on Facebook. I don't think people quite get that.
Right.
But the abilities that we've been given to target, we took those, and the ability to track, we took those and we just blasted it in all the clients' faces for 2 decades of look at this cool stuff that we can do and we can track all of it and all this is amazing. And now we're having to backtrack and be like, okay, so remember when I said that we could track it? Not quite. And remember when it was going to be this like extremely targeted ad campaign?
Yep.
It's going to be fuzzy now. It's not going to be as good. So I think that the biggest issue is going to be who can basically reinvent what we're doing to do it. I'm not going to say blind because we still have a decent amount of information there. There's still a lot of good tools, but it's not going to be nearly as accurate as it was. It's just, there's no way around it. And I think that one of the biggest things is that every individual client that you will talk to will feel like it's a personal attack and like you're not giving them the best service possible because they're like, well, why can't I track it anymore? Why are you taking this away from me? It's like, it's not me.
Right.
And it's literally everybody. It's not just you. So I think that the companies that grasp that it's not a personal attack on them and try and shift and find some new KPIs, they're going to be the ones who are doing better long term rather than holding so tightly to the control that we once had because we're not going to get it back. It's not going to be the same as it was.
It's almost like we need to have a public service announcement on behalf of all digital marketers to be able to educate those clients because we got them there. We like I said, we persuaded them. We trained them on the saccharine drip that was this data, and now we have to push back. And I guess what do you see? It was the pendulum swinging back because of consumer reaction, or do you think it was much more around big tech not wanting to get into the PR mess that was Cambridge? What was it? Cambridge Analytica with Facebook, right?
I'll say that was the big kicker. That had all the meetings in front of the government, panels and everything. Where clearly the people interviewing Google and Facebook was like, oh God, these guys making the laws have no idea what this stuff is.
Literally asking, where did my email come from? It's like, this is your email, Senator. Like, what are you talking
Unbelievable.
about?
I mean, to the degree where the guy was describing the internet as full of tubes about a decade ago. Yeah, and we all realized that the people that are representing this country
doesn't matter what side of the aisle. It's all of them.
There's such a level of ignorance that there has been a clamor of, can we get representation of the digital marketing space as well as big tech, but digital marketing space, be able to educate the leaders of this country to help guide them in understanding.
And now the trust is too broken where you can't have anyone from these channels working with them because everyone's going to think like there's some collusion going on. So like you now it's just like, well, not going to say it's the wild, wild west, but kind of how it ties into like our strategies is that we know the big dogs like Facebook and Google are getting hit. So they're the ones making these changes quicker. But then that kind of helps us knowing that like some of the smaller animals like a Quora or something is like, I guarantee government doesn't know about them.
Right.
Or is going to care that they're too small. It's like, well, we can still do all this cool stuff here. They haven't gotten rid of any targeting options or anything. So it's one of the things that we adapt our strategy. And we always try to say, whether it's because of these changes or not, whenever we have a new client, we're not going to just go to Google and Facebook first. We're going to go to where your target audience is, and that should always be the case. But now if we have to get a little bit clever and we're not seeing as good a performance from even what we can track with CRM stuff, we're still going to take some of the budget from the bigger dogs and spread it out to at least test different options that can still give us more information, at least better understanding who the audience is, or just use it to more areas to where our target audience actually is.
And even go further of being able to build out your existing site deeper to be able to, if you're experimenting in those more niche platforms, be able to have content representative of those interests. So you can now start baking in understanding at your first party level of what your consumers' interests truly are. If you can actually start having that narrative on your own website, you're owning that data. And that's what I wanted to get into here with just an understanding of what we're really talking about for the audience here is first party cookies and third party cookies. Just a definition if you missed this particular piece of news here. First party cookies are collected and used by the direct website a user visits, right? And third party cookies allow for cross domain tracking and targeting. Okay, so first party cookies are hosted by the domain. A user is actually visiting. Their purpose is to provide a smoother site experience. So, and we've all seen it before. If you've returned to the site, hey, welcome back, right? Or I saw that you were navigating this. Here's some additional options. And on top of that, even understanding that you added a piece of whatever to your shopping cart. All that's first person data. Third party are hosted by other parties like ad servers and social media sites, and basically gives us additional targeting and lookalike audiences external of our own domain, right?
Yeah.
All right, so there's the environment, and third party. All this data will not be honored by the Chrome browser, and we're talking 2023 at that point in time. I think that's being rolled around right now. But the point is, there's such an incredible industry of just being able to swap that data and understand and be able to tap into these like audiences, these interests that are all going to be going away. And that's the crux of everything, right? Now, it doesn't help whenever something like the AMP debacle gets rolled out in front of public, where all of a sudden now there's allegations that AMP was never even for speed of a consumer. That was actually used to be able to marginalize these other ad exchanges out there and just have Google's ad exchange as a primary vehicle. Don't want to open up that can of worms.
Nope.
So I was glad I was in the paid space.
But it doesn't help trust of legislation or consumers. And it does snowball. Whether it's fictional or not, I should say fictional, whether it's pertinent to your advertising or not, or pertinent to those smaller platforms that have great audience targeting. You're going to have the Indiana Jones boulder roll through and just crash through everything, and we're going to be stuck with owning and managing our first person data only, right? So that was a long-winded way to tee it up to what do we do with first person data? How do we actually now move into this new strategy where we're going to be blind to the most part? What do we start looking at for the consumers that are actually interacting with our own domain?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've been telling people is to build your first party data set, because you do have the ability on your own site to collect user information. And then at this point, and I don't know of any rumors of it going away, we can then, as long as you have collected that data with people knowing that you collected their data, we can then go into the platforms and say, here are the email addresses, the names, the phone numbers, whatever. Here's the information that people have willingly given me.
Right.
Now go match this to your user base, Facebook, Google, whoever. And then that's how we can create our audiences. Right. So those are the things that we've been telling people to work on, because then you own that data because people have willingly given it to you. And you don't have to worry about the third-party cookies and all this kind of stuff because they gave up their rights to that information when they did that. I think that is always going to be the best way to go about marketing because, one, you have to have done something or given something away that is valuable enough for people to be willing to give you their information in the first place. So you're doing something right on that first instance because they trusted you enough to give you their information. And then the second aspect of it is now you own that. You can do whatever you want with it. You can use it for paid ads, or you can use it to just run email campaigns, or you can just not do anything with it and just hold on to it for whatever reason. I still think that's a really important portion of it. And I think that's something that people need to get used to, which then from the paid perspective of it, the biggest challenge that I have at any point trying to get people on board with first-party data collection is, well, what do I give them? Like, what is the offer? What is the call to action? It's like, how do we actually get people to be willing to engage with us? And that's where it comes back to kind of what I was saying earlier, is that people need to be good marketers because you're just trying to engage and give value, not just chase metrics.
Right.
Because so many times people are like, well, let's put together a white paper. Those have good ROI. And it's like, okay, one, does it? And two, a white paper sounds terrible. Like, come up with something that's new and different and still gets that information in front of somebody, but not just sell all the time, you know? Yeah. I'm done now.
Well, yeah, and that leads to like another extremely important part. You know, we talk about the importance of branding and having the good offer. Well, you have a good offer that's engaging, that's going to want to have people, you know, trust your brand and give their information. It's good creative, with that offer. And that's something that, you know, tying in, you want to try not, instead of metrics chasing, or like you said, like, oh, there's a channel. I need to be on TikTok now because that's a thing. You know, we've had clients that do that and be like, here's a video for it. It's a video that they've had for like the past 2 years. They're not making it for the platform with how people engage. That's going to make them seem that your brand is attractive to them. Right. So it's creative is going to be huge, and diversifying it to meet how people engage with brands on each of those particular platforms. So that means, I'm going to have to create a lot more creative, consistently too. You know, you're gonna have to try to keep. Look how fast like TikTok moves. You know, it's Twitter moves very fast. If you're still advertising on Twitter, so it's what's gonna make them stop scrolling or stop swiping to focus on you, and that takes a good amount of testing.
It does, and we are talking about the client's willingness to be able to adapt and understanding of the space, and in all frankness. It's been a tough slog just to get clients to understand this environment to begin with. Yep. And are they ready for that more nimble nature and that fractional type of engagement, albeit it's got to be even more authentic at those platforms. You can't take that square peg and try to drive it into all these different round holes from a square peg video that you did 4 years ago. Yeah. You've got to slice it up. You got to be able to make it more engaging. But in the mindset of the audience is also completely savvy to clunky engagement, clunky message delivery. So they're dedicated in their platforms, and we talked about this with Quora, is you can't advertise in Quora unless you've been there and you've participated in that space for a good long period of time. You've got to have your authenticity and your expertise recognized in there to even get time of day from an ad campaign, right?
Yeah, it's one of the things of we still test it out in terms of how we want to react with the users. And YouTube is my probably favorite channel, and even within some audiences, everyone thinks like humor always works. It's like, well, not all the time. Right. Some people just want to get straight to the point, give them the information, just depending on what they're searching for, depending on the industry. So in times of testing like different emotions within the creatives and everything that we've seen, that have a big impact, instead of just taking the same image or video, trying to milk that forever, and then but I changed my headline. And I was like, that's we can do better than that.
And that whole idea goes to what you were saying earlier about like, are clients willing to be that nimble?
Right.
And if you're not going to beat your competition online, because the brands that are going to win will be that. They might not want to, but they're going to. I mean, when it comes down to it, there are too many different tools out there that are relatively low cost that can help you do good creative and test and iterate on it, like Canva. Right. We use Canva for stuff. It's WYSIWYG, drag and drop, put in something new. They've got templates, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, that's not video, but there are plenty of other video platforms out there too. Right. And you can easily lean into this kind of stuff. And whether or not you want to, I know that creative is one of the more expensive parts of being online, which that sucks, but you've got to spend money to make money, unfortunately. And this is going to be definitely one of those areas. And we're not even creative people. Like, we're better at like the nuts and bolts analytics of like the campaigns and whatnot. But that doesn't mean that we don't see the value in it. And
what do you mean? He's got a mohawk. He's creative.
I know, right? Super artsy and stuff.
But it's going great and falling out.
Stole all the hair from his head, put it on his face.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Every time you show up with a new hairstyle,
right.
they say, "Oh, what the hell's going on?"
See, next
here?
time I need to shave the edge of the web logo on the side next time.
There you go.
Missed my opportunity.
Yeah, you did. You really did. To your point, this is a budget challenge. So not only do we have a challenge for even getting the clients in that mindset of continued testing, but with testing comes a variety of different things, and we have to look at how we can effectively and efficiently move into that, because if we're using the old mindset or the old budget model of how much a Facebook takes in labor to do, right? We're going to be tripling, if not quadrupling, our budget of just creative alone, let alone the actual efforts for testing, right?
Yeah, well, then it's like proving, is this actually working? And I mean, hopefully clients were always doing this, but I think it's more important now than ever of your own internal information. Are you keeping your own internal CRM in line to say like, hey, these people, originally came from this particular campaign 3 years ago,
right?
And this is the type of creative that we use, and this is the type of messaging that we use, and this is our targeting option. This is the platform to understand internally. Getting your own. This is another way to get your first party information.
Yep.
Is it working? Is it proving the value of it? Hey, this campaign actually led to a pretty good lifetime value. Now we know I can invest into these channels again because I had the confidence, because we had all that information within our CRM. So we were tracking those users, and a lot of like the information, we can upload that offline data back into these systems to really help feed our other campaigns. So to me, internal tracking is now more than ever is still extremely important.
What do you say to the clients or the businesses that don't have that bandwidth enough of just traffic to their site to be able to even start carving out user segmentation and behavior? If they're having 2,000, 3,000 visitors, can you actually get that data on site to be able to truly navigate?
I mean, you can have a small audience that doesn't really have lots of segmentations about it. I think usually whenever we think about trying to reach our audiences, that kind of thing, what goes through our head are like the big brands like Nike, which have a lot of different subsets of people. They've got the people who want athleisure, they want people who want just style, and they just want the shoes for style. But then there are also like serious runners who need something for like marathons, but then there are also people who swim. Like Nike has a lot of different categories of customers. But for companies that have only a very small subset of people, your user base might be one segmentation.
Right.
You don't need to have your database broken up into a lot of things, but you can use all of that information to understand your full cohort and then go say, okay, so we've noticed in this section of our user base, it usually ends up, they talk about things this way, and in this other one, they talk about it a different way. So what platforms do we have that have the different targeting options available? And does one lean into the way that these people talk about it versus the way these people talk about it? Even if it's the same people, do we then speak to them differently because of the way that they talk about it? Like if your sales team talks to people and they use one set of language versus another, something like that. But I think that even if you have a small set, that doesn't mean you don't have to try and break it up and bifurcate it and come up with these different personas and that kind of stuff. You could have your one persona, but then you need to translate that into how to target them on the different platforms. Like, are we going to do Google search for this? Or are we going to do Facebook? How can I find that user base as many places online? Because with that smaller subset, everybody uses everything across the internet anyway. Nobody's on just Google,
Sure.
So your challenge, rather than saying, okay, how can we market to all these different people? It's how can we market to these people differently based on their mindset of where they are? Because on Google search, you're in a very different mindset than you are on TikTok.
Yep.
So how can you still be as relevant to that person, but meet them where they are based on their location on the web or within whichever app, that kind of thing.
And that gets into understanding not only the mindset, but also where they are in their purchasing mindset as well. Yeah. So that kind of links up with being able to create behavioral patterns. If you're having informational content, transactional content, brand alliance content, different types of that buyer's journey, we always say it, but that gets us into the space of you need to reveal more information about and give away that information to your users so you can now make an attractive informational page. Now you know where they are, so you can actually move directly to them in that next segment of the journey, right?
Totally.
And that actually connects into SEO because we want them to create entities inside of NTO and have SEO and be able to have a full understanding of all the sub points of a topic. See, I know it's going to come back around to SEO.
That's sale.
Anyway, but we always do need to use that content. I think that that's one of the big things that I really appreciate now that I think more companies are understanding is that your website needs to be able to answer all of the questions that your potential customers will have, because otherwise they're going to take up your salesperson's time and their own time, and then they're going to find out the answer that's not what they wanted to hear, and then they're not going to work with you, and you've wasted everybody's time. And all of the information that can be on the site like that obviously helps out with all sorts of different things in SEO that I don't understand. But then on top of that, the fact that that content is already put together for paid, we can easily whip up new landing pages and craft them very specifically based on what we know about those people. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, come up with a whole new thing. We'll take a paragraph from here, smooth the language so that it actually fits cohesively, and just basically take all of the things that we've already done and just repackage them to be useful elsewhere. Like, there's no reason that we would have to like compete and say, well, this is ours and that's yours and this kind of stuff. Like, it needs to all work together.
Yeah. And if you're building, you said trying to get more understanding from the audience if you're not too sure where they are. Some of the things that we've done for like e-commerce clients worried about losing some of the first party information is that if we're using some of these higher level first party like lead forms to get people to a newsletter, on like the lead form to collect that information, we will ask them like, what's your favorite type of product? So if you say like, yeah, we like sunglasses, shoes. So it's like they're kind of telling you what they like. Now you can start building those different audience segments internally, and you start segmenting out your lists. And then two, making them work harder to fill out the form, answer the question. These people are actually interested. These are product or service level questionings that you're filtering out, but it's also stuff that cannot be auto-populated by the channels to fill in the information. So you're actually making it a little bit higher quality with your form fill interactions, plus getting better audience information for first-party audience segmentation.
And that is a big challenge because the conversion optimization side person in my head says, okay, I want to be able to have as much flow through, but if I'm actually putting more fields and more barriers, I'm going to get more qualified, right?
And helping the sales team, like Michelle said. And then you're not wasting everyone's time because you're making it better. And then from an advertising standpoint, most like the lead forms have the settings of, do you want more volume or higher intent? Well, if I'm already pre-qualifying with better questions, then I could still leave that setting at more volume. I want more people who are more likely to work a little bit, and I'm still getting kind of the best of both worlds there.
Very good. Well, we dove into a lot of behavior analysis and guidance at the first party cookie level, because that's where we're going to have to be. And you mentioned before we got into the show here, insisting upon CRMs, making sure that is flowing someplace. It's not just going to a form fill email. And that's just dead wood at that point in time. Yeah, you can interact, but you're not learning from that, right? So making sure that you have, and do you have any recommendations on CRMs out there by chance?
HubSpot's an easy one. Like, most people can get into it, they can use it, it does what you need it to do. I think there's a free version. There's a free version, and then you can upgrade to paid, that kind of stuff. And one of the things I was thinking about when we were talking about all this stuff at different points is that if you're going to win at online marketing, you've missed the window when it was easy. You missed it. I'm real sorry. You missed when it was easy, when you could just put up ads and be like, well, it's not very good, but it's got an ROI, because that's just, it is what it is. And I think that there's a lot of people who kind of are like, well, CRM takes a lot of work and I got to manage it. And it's like,
suck it up.
Tough. If you want your business to make money and you're going to do stuff online, you need to do it right. And it's going to take effort and it's going to take money. But it just is what it is. You missed the window when it was easy. You should have done that a while ago.
And it's a natural evolution of anything. And we always kind of crap in our own nest and things have to change regularly. But this should have been adopted a long time ago by companies, though. So the hard work really is more procrastination on the clients. They have to have this data. They have to understand their consumers. They have to understand the behavior of their websites. And if the site's a brochure, you also have to work hard to unpack the knowledge that you've got. So you're giving that away to these potential consumers or these potential customers, right?
I think a lot of people get really concerned about that because they think that their intellectual property is the thing that sets them apart. So they want to keep it secret. And there are we joke about it all the time. We see a new website for a SaaS company and you can read the whole site. I don't know what they do.
Right.
You'd have no idea. It's like, well, I think it has something to do with payments because that person's holding a credit card. I don't know.
Yep.
But then all they're doing is synergizing their technologies and, 10xing whatever. So it's all just buzzwords and whatnot. But I don't think that people understand that when you give away stuff for free, you're going to build a bigger audience. Because, with the YouTube channel and stuff, people are like, oh, you're just giving away all the information because we're showing you how to do what we do. Like, we're not necessarily always giving you like the exact mindset behind it, but like we show you literally how to do what we do. But there are always going to be people who go, wow, you know how to do this.
Exactly.
I don't want to learn how to do this. Please do this for me. I'll do what I'm good at. It's supposed to be you pay other people to do stuff that they're good at and you do what you're the best at. So you might think that it's counterintuitive and that you would just be, shooting it all out the window and running your business into the ground by giving stuff away for free. You're not.
No, conversely, you're bold out there. You're demonstrating. You're also putting yourself up for your expertise, and you're putting yourself up for scrutiny as well. Yep. It takes somebody that knows and has fully confident in what they're doing to be able to demonstrate to everybody. Because as soon as you're out there in public square, you can take any number of pot shots from competitors out there. So you got to know your shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's a lot of times too. It's hard to market a product that's not unique or valuable. So I think that's a huge part too. It's like people think they could over market to help some of the stuff. And we run into it a lot too. It's like, well, if you're not really separating yourself out, like we can't really advertise you to a real positive ROI or company growth.
And I think a lot of people think that to that point, because I run into this a lot. Like we'll ask people, okay, so what sets you apart from your competitors? And they're kind of like they don't always know, or they can't articulate it. It's like, okay, well,
legitly there's nothing different.
There's nothing different. But even on top of that, you might not be. I think that there are tons of business books out there that's like be number one in the world. It's like we're not all going to be number one in the world. It's not the way that it is.
Can't possibly be that.
Your
differentiator
could easily be, well, we're the company that does it right down the street from your house as opposed to the one that does it 2 towns over. Like that could be enough of a differentiator. Absolutely. Like lean into what you have and don't just try and think about it like, oh, we're 10% less or whatever. Just be able to articulate what makes you different, even if it's just a very small difference, like we're physically closer to you or we'll get on the phone, they won't, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be our product is the best in the world at what it's trying to be because it's probably
some products. You can't move that because some products are just commodity, and then you're trying to lean into the mission, the values of the company, and there you can actually leverage some loyalty there. Yeah. Right? All right, so I gotta wrap up this. We went long on this. I do appreciate.
We talked too much. No way.
I knew it was going to happen, but this was a really good summary of where we are. Maybe it's a final thought. See, I can't stop. A final thought for businesses to take on this phase out third party cookie scenario here. What are the next steps? CRMs first. What should they be doing to be able to prepare for 2022 and 2023?
You want to go first?
Build a brand.
Yeah.
Be a brand, build a brand, engage with people, show them how you're different, but also engage with them truthfully. Think about a company that you would want to engage with and then be that company. We always end up going after people and chasing the metrics. Like, well, I want the ROI. It's like, great, but would you want to engage with a company that just wants the ROI on the bottom line? It's not that you won't get that, but at the first part of it, you have to give a little away first.
Yeah, it's an investment.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep, and adapt yesterday. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be.
Right.
So it's one of those things where one of my biggest complaints, I think I put it out, in the survey of the show. It's one of my biggest gripes about the industry is any change that happens, there's a good amount of people are just going to go to Twitter and complain. I was like, it's not changing. It's not going to go back to the way it used to be. It's like, just figure it out now. Deal with it. I think the more you just suck it up, deal with all these changes, try to learn as much as possible, as soon as possible, you're going to be better off. If you're the ones who's willing to adapt, this industry has always been an ever-changing industry. That part has never changed. It's never going to change.
The
part,
change,
I was
changing.
I realized what I was saying.
Good job, Joe.
I think the other change is that we're always going to change.
They are.
All
Yes.
right.
That is this industry. So the people who can be the first to figure out what works from whatever the changes or policy updates are going to be, you're going to be the ones that are better off because you're going to learn faster. You're going to learn sooner. You're going to collect the information that you can use for your other marketing channels.
This is not destination-based type of behavior. This is behavior. It's not a journey to a place. Mm-hmm. Okay, we've achieved that, right? No. It is the behavior, the adjustment is now what has to be adopted. And that is the actual end goal right there.
Yeah.
Be able to bend and be able to flex and what have you, but learn from it. Always be learning. All right.
There's going to be new platforms coming out. There's always new technology coming out. And a lot of that stuff is going to drive our industry and those changes.
It's all going to be Ready Player One eventually. Anyway, right?
Pretty much.
Good.
Yeah.
One thing in particular, guys, you can do you had done a lot of speaking. All that stopped to a screeching halt in 2019, 2020. Mm-hmm. Boy, there was a huge chasm, a huge gap, and it wasn't just for business acquisition. It was the knowledge transfer kind of stopped, and we were still sharing in social much more than ever before, as almost like a response to that. But what'd you guys lose in this space of just virtual conferences and whether or not they were even effective? But what was your take on the entire shutdown?
I lost my gold status for flying places. That's not actually true. But no, it became pretty apparent that there's just no trading for in-person events.
Oh yeah.
It's too easy when you're trying to do like a digital conference, that kind of stuff. It's very clear from the speaker perspective, whether the attendees think so or not. It's very clear from the speaker's perspective that people are not paying nearly as much attention at the virtual events as they are in person.
Right.
They've just got too many other things going on. Nobody's talking directly at them. They're just, they're staring at the computer. I'm guaranteeing that most of the time people aren't even looking at whatever the screen is that's playing.
You're just listening.
Yeah, they're just listening. I just don't think there's a trade for the in-person stuff. So I hope that we get back to that to some degree, because I do think that holds a lot of value, and I think that people are much more willing to pay attention whenever they're in person.
Yeah, and the QA part too, for the most part, not everyone that we've done virtually, but I think for the most part, the QAs are just
milk
weaker.
toast.
Yeah, because they weren't fully paying attention, and then you really don't get any questions at the end. There's been one where there's been like 2 questions, and after like a 45-hour-minute presentation, we're like, "So, Joe, do you want to tell us anything else about it?" And, it's one of those things
Or you can tell that they basically sat through your session to ask a question, but it's not about the session. It's just a question that they had, and they knew that they could get in front of you because, it's not like an on-topic question. So this is certainly not all of the shows. Like we've had some really good ones where people are highly engaged, that kind of thing. Right. But just on the whole, the virtual stuff just isn't nearly as engaged and as focused as the in-person events are.
You find out how much you appreciate that, and it's not just for even that engagement, but also all the connectivity of friends in the industry and being able to actually have that camaraderie, right?
It's the networking, I think, was the biggest value. So, I mean, to all the bosses out there, this is 100% truth. Like, people don't go to these conferences just for a trip. The trip is definitely a fun part to visit a different city.
They go for the open bar.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, exactly. But like we clearly see people taking notes, engaged, asking questions. Like it's super valuable. But then the networking stuff, the open bars, that's where some of the biggest discussions and learnings happen. It's like, hey, you mentioned this in your presentation, and you can get into a big snowball conversation about strategies, tactics, and you can get much more out of that than an actual deck. Like watching a PowerPoint. So that value is what's really lost.
And from the speaker perspective of it, we love it when you come up and we have like longer conversations later, because the reason we do it is because we want to share the information that we have. Like we genuinely enjoy doing it. Otherwise we wouldn't put together a freaking YouTube channel.
We're nerds.
Super nerds. Look what we can do. But like we enjoy it when people come up and talk to us. I think some people are worried that they're going to like inconvenience us or that kind of thing. It's like, no, that's why we're here. Like that's the value that we're trying to provide. And I remember going to my first shows, and it was the coolest thing to be able to go up and talk to people afterward and not even just say, so the strategy that you have outlined in this deck, like how did you use that in your accounts? It's like, no, how can you help me translate that to mine? Because every account is different. And like we're not going to sit down and open a computer and show you what to do, that sort of thing. But like from a high level, we can give you ideas about paths to go down, and then you can go do your research. But now you've at least, what is the old, I want to say it's like a philosophical thing.
When
like
one teaches to learn.
Well, no, I was going to say like the candle in the cave. Like the light only gets to a certain point, and you don't know what you don't know yet. So you basically, your light got brighter, and now you have a lot more that you can go learn, and it kind of gets bigger and bigger because now you know what you don't know, so you know what to go learn, and then that'll help you even more.
I like that analogy a lot better. No, you're absolutely right. And you're doing recon whenever you're in that, because, I mean, for people that are asking questions, you also are getting fodder of what you should create next, right?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it actually fills the cup of content that needs to be explained.
That's exactly right.
And then I think the channel really helped too with no speaking events, you know, for a while, and even some virtual stuff wasn't ready for a while because everything kept getting delayed.
Right.
So, I mean, for the while, we got lucky that we had the channel. I mean, we had the channel before everything went down with COVID, but it really kept us to have a means of content coming out. So I think that was important. And we're lucky when we first got together and this whole thing was supposed to be a book.
It's embarrassing.
You serious?
True.
100%.
So the first time I came here and I met her at a coffee shop beforehand, we were starting to plan out a book.
We're going to write a book.
And then we're like, this sucks.
And then it's like, I don't like writing a 1,000-word blog post. Why are we dedicating to a book? Like,
and on top of that, as soon as you actually write it, it's out of date.
Yeah.
right.
And the dashboard changes. They move this thing over here.
Exactly.
We look at how many are videos. We have a calendar of all the videos that we've ever produced and how many of those are already out of date. Well, like Michelle said earlier too, like interface change, and people already complained with comments on there, be like, it doesn't look like this anymore. I was like, okay, it says this video was made like 2 years ago. Give us a break, please.
Right. Like, and now we're at a point where we need to start recycling back through those and like do that one again.
Yep.
This is the 2021 version. Like,
see,
we won't take the other one down, but
it's a content curation engin right there. All right. I failed to mention who these two are as a combined force. This is Paid Media Pros, and if you go to the YouTube channel Paid Media Pros on YouTube, you're going to find such a library of resources for so many different digital marketing tactics. And it's not just the concept; it's actually how you do this particular audience segmentation, or how you actually execute this particular tactic in that platform. So it's an incredibly useful and utilitarian channel, but it's literally, and we talked about this in the previous episode, it's almost a college course. You send a marketer right out of college and you go have them absorb that space, right? And you guys are training literally our new blood coming into the industry. How about that?
Never thought of it that way.
You didn't?
No. I just thought of, this is a piece of content we can put out there that we get paid for, right? That's why we're doing this.
That sounds right. From my perspective, I've thought about it a lot at this point, there are so many people that are like, I need help with PPC work. Like, I think in every industry, people are trying to find people to fill in jobs and do that sort of thing. But like, especially in our space, there's more work to go around than can be supported. And I think part of the problem that I've always had with the industry is that you don't have to know a lot to be able to sell PPC services.
Right.
You have to know a lot to be able to deliver on them well.
Yes.
And I think that was one of the things that always kind of bothered me, is there are a lot of people selling PPC that don't know how to do it. So I've always liked the idea of putting out content that at least talks about it from the right perspective. And if there's a strategy that somebody else is pushing that we disagree with, we'll just say it. We'll say, you can test it. We don't like this. Here's why. But here's how it works. And then you make your own decision. Like, all we want to do is make sure that people have the understanding of how it works. And then it may or may not work in your account. Go test it. But here are the potential upsides, potential downsides, all that stuff. So trying to help train new people, all that kind of stuff, make sure that people are doing things the right way, not just scamming people.
Right.
So,
and I personally have always been more of a visual learner, like either being hands-on or watching someone do it, not reading a blog post step by step of how to do something.
Or God forbid a book.
Yeah.
Oh
man,
God,
reading.
Who writes books nowadays? Ugh. Yeah.
So, I mean, for our audience, please go over and check out Paid Media Pros, as it's a huge opportunity to be able to learn and really level up your skills. What on the platform have you not touched inside of digital marketing tactics or platforms that you want to expand into?
I don't know. If people could send in video ideas, that would be great.
Well, I think some of like the newer channels that we'd like to we just got an email response from a Roku rep today that we got into the beta.
That kind of
So
stuff.
hopefully the video like that will be coming out soon. I think it's
into Hulu too.
Yeah, so it's like
cool.
That's the fun stuff. Like we can do a LinkedIn targeting option video again. It needs to be updated, but
We're gonna.
Yeah. So, but it's like, and on our end, it's like we did this already. But that's the fun part of this industry is testing all the new stuff. So
Right.
creating new videos like that. However, we can see in our own YouTube analytics if it's not Google or Facebook, it doesn't get a ton of views. So.
Sure.
I think one of the other things, if I'm gonna give an answer to it, is that we've done a lot of the really hands-on like tactic approach. Like here's how you do this. Here's the checklist of how you get there. I think what we haven't done quite as much are like the higher level strategies, that sort of thing. The problem with those is that those are difficult to articulate in like what the blurb is or what the video card is and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So we're trying to figure out different ways to like put together content that's around strategy so that you can think about it from a high level of, okay, so you've got this YouTube channel that's full of all these things that you can do. So then what's the way that we talk about like how to decide which ones to do? I think that's part of the area that we haven't really filled in the gaps quite yet, but we're still working on it. It's a little bit closer to like conferences, that sort of thing. Because when you go to conferences, you don't teach people how to change keyword bids on stage. Like that's not what you're going to do. You teach people why to change keyword bids and what to change them to and how to test a pattern, something like that. I think that's a little bit closer to what we, from my perspective, that we haven't tackled yet, that we're still trying to figure out the right way to do it.
Very cool. Well, we're certainly going to be watching that channel grow. And how long has that been around? How long has Paid Media Pros been around now?
3-4 years.
Yeah.
I'm asking. I don't know.
I think
Not
2018.
5. Not 5, more than 2.
What kind of followers do we have now?
Yeah, I think we really started to push or promote it early of 2019.
Cool.
We've got 11,000 subscribers.
Sweet.
Almost 12.
Almost 12.
Almost 12.
Fantastic. All right, so they're the PPC experts that literally I'll default to if there's anything that needs to be answered. These guys do it. So I want to bring him in and actually really unpack. We unpacked a lot during the last show regarding privacy, regarding what's about to change from third party to first party cookies, what we're about to lose over the next 2 years, and certainly recommend going back and listening to that show. So it was pretty darn insightful. These two, not me. I'm just here, just kind of with my hand on the rudder. But the point being is, let's get into what should be happening right now, what you should be paying attention to, starting with what has changed this year alone in all of these different platforms. Not all of them, because there's a lot of different changes, but what are your top 5 changes that you've witnessed this year in 2021 that our listeners should be mindful of? And then we'll steer towards 2022 with some suggested strategies. So some key things. One thing in particular that really got everybody's notice is
I think the most recent one was the announcement that expanded text ads are going to go away.
Yep.
They're going to be sunset. They're not going away, but you won't be able to create new ones after June 30th of 2022.
Right.
So
fix all your spelling errors now.
Right now. Go back through, look at it. I think the big thing about that is that feels like a really big shift because Google is effectively forcing us to use responsive search ads. It's not some catastrophic thing because you can craft a responsive search ad to functionally be an expanded text ad.
yes.
So it's in the same way that when I'm not even going to put a number on it. Whenever they sunset the regular text ads for expanded text ads, you could still kind of make something that was a text ad if you want to.
Right.
It's just a different format, and we're just getting different functionality and that sort of thing. Like I think that people were really worried about this. The writing on the wall for people who've been doing this for a while is we're going to lose the ability to control everything.
Yep.
Because my thought is they're going to give us, we're allowed to control things now to where we could pin all 3 headlines, 2 descriptions. They're all in the same spot. The ad's going to show exactly like that every time.
Right.
So we can get around the functionality of it. But I think over time, they're going to get rid of that. And then it's basically going to be that we are going to have to adapt into the dynamic of the responsive search ad stuff. But I think that a lot of people are really worried about it. And I wouldn't be really worried about it yet because you still get to pick the copy that goes in there. You still have some control on it. And
Still your messaging, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were given a very long time to transition to this. We had like 8 months when they first announced it, and that's big. That's a long amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot that you can do in the meantime, but that's probably the most recent one that I think has gotten a lot of people's attention.
Yeah. Another one where you got to try to learn as much as possible with your controlled ads, which particular headlines or descriptions are really having the best impact that could feed a better responsive search ad. And Google will always have their suggestions. You have to take them. They're going to work for some accounts. They're not going to work. I'm not going to totally bash it. Yeah. But, they're even pushing right now. Well, yes, you can pin certain headlines, but pin multiple headlines in the first spot. Pin multiple headlines in the second spot. It's not just 1, 2, 3. You can have multiple ones pinned, multiple twos pinned. So you're still controlling where in the ad format it's going to appear, but not necessarily when all the time.
You're kind of fencing it in, but you are losing control of the order in which these are happening to a particular degree.
And
to some degree.
And we've worked with accounts in banking or finance where every single ad has to go through legal.
Right.
They got to know exactly how that ad appears. It's like, well, you're going to have to completely pin 1, 1, 1 to know exactly what's being shown.
Yeah.
But then when Google says that, the less variance you give, it's going to hurt your ad rank.
Right.
They flat out said that. So it's some industries.
I don't think it's
going
to impact your ad rank. I think it's going to impact your ad score.
Ad score, yes.
Your ad score, which has nothing to do with your ad rank.
Yeah, that's right.
So the ad score is basically Google giving you a thumbs up, thumbs down on how well they think your responsive search ad will perform.
Okay.
But it's not actually going to give you a boost or a discount when you go into the auction to bid against your competitors.
As opposed to quality score, which absolutely does.
Which does.
Yes.
Yeah, that factors into it.
Got it.
So that the ad score that you get on responsive search ads, if you see that being really low, that doesn't mean that that's impacting your performance. It's just Google telling you, we don't think this is following the best practices we have set out.
Got it.
So if you see a low ad score, it doesn't mean it's hurting your performance. It's the same thing like optimization score in the account. They put up that number.
Sure.
Everybody's fixated on that number because it's one big blue number up at the top and all that kind of stuff. All that number does is tells you, did you or did you not roll out these suggested changes that Google gave you? That's literally all that means.
That's all it is.
And you can make that number go up by dismissing a suggestion. You didn't even do anything. All of my accounts are almost always at 100 each month because I run through that list because, like you said, not every suggestion is bad.
Right.
So I go through, I look at it. Some of them I'll just evaluate. They usually give a number of keywords you could add. They tell you about conflicting negative keywords that are in the way. Mm-hmm. Those are great. You can fix that up.
But we also have tools that we have at our disposal to be able to do that outside of the dashboard recommendations there.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But the thing is that won't that come back around in one way, shape, or form? Because we know that Google is looking at that badge of being a Google partner as adopting some of these recommendations. And if you're not adopting these recommendations over a particular period of time, they're going to ding you, and they're also going to potentially, if it's not 70%, I can't remember what the actual score was, or how many acceptances of their recommendations. They had some nebulous thing at one point in time that they'll not only demote you and take the badge away, right? Mm-hmm. But they're also moving these suggestions in front of your client as well.
Oh, they're doing that for sure. Yeah. They are emailing people directly, CCing people. Right. And I saw language from one the other day that was basically like, your Google Ads account has a cost per click that is too high for this sector. Please email us and we'll tell you how to fix it.
Unbelievable.
And it's like, how do you know? I mean, you might know what the competitive landscape is for CPC, but how do you know if this is not profitable for my client and whatnot? Like, and luckily this wasn't anything that was for me.
So many of the reps now, we're getting hit up multiple times per week for like every client. They're from Google, but they're through some other hired out company. So it's like, they're really not Google reps. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw a couple of those come through just recently. Yeah, they're starting to get even more and more frequent on those on the messaging there.
We get the same calling and emailing multiple times a week. The same people. It's awful.
Yep.
So I mean, there's that
change.
No. So I mean, there's that taking the recommendations, right? You put yourself in the space. I'm sorry to diverge from ETAs, but the point being is that the environment has changed. That they're more and more insistent, and there's going to be ramifications to you as an agency over time. And you also have to educate and narrate this to the client of what they're about to see, because Google's wanting to monetize that. They want you to click. And it's so easy. They put that dashboard there so easily. Yeah, you can click that. Click that optimize button, all of a sudden you're spending $2,000 more on what they recommended, right? So there's a horror story right there. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say ETAs is definitely the biggest shift, but that can lead to other things in terms of changes for the years. There were other just automation changes within Google Ads. Is that the announcement that standard and smart display campaigns, they're going to be combined within one. You can still select between the two. That's another teeny tiny little shift that they're trying to fly under the radar of. Right now, it's in one campaign type. You can clearly see eventually that standard display will be phased out, and it'll be all the smart display. They combined some of the, not combined, they changed the TrueView for action for video campaigns into the video action campaigns, where that uses the responsive YouTube ad format. So that's more one ad to hit multiple placements type thing. So we see from even just beyond search, the other campaign formats are being a little bit more automated,
taking out
a little bit more responsive. So well, ETAs is the biggest impact one for sure. That's going to hit more accounts. It's other areas that are still going to shift into more automation hands-off type
which
areas.
You cannot control, and into different apertures, different formats, and something that as an advertiser, you want to be able to have that type of discretion, right? And that's being systematically taken away. And the goal here is to be able to explore more monetization of, well, not monetization, but be able to expand what that campaign can actually do on different properties that Google owns, right? So they're forcing the hand of advertisers.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason, like what we were talking about last time. Like if you're able to adapt and figure out how things work, you're going to be able to better be into it. Like you said, every time there's a change that comes out, yeah, you might be irritated about it for a little bit, but the solution is not to complain about it. I think there's been one time in my entire career that Google made a change that everybody complained about it enough that they reversed the change.
Oh yeah.
But then they eventually got back around to just doing it in a different way. I can't even remember what it was, but I remember eventually being like, okay, well, they got back to what they were trying to do. It just was a little less abrupt when they got around to it the next time.
Got it.
But that's why we usually are irritated for a little bit. But then the next thought is, okay, so what do we have now and what can I do with it and how can I focus on it? Like they just recently announced, what do they call them? Max campaigns, max performance campaigns just came out of beta. So now they're in every account. I have seen them in beta in some of the accounts and I'm trying to figure out how they work, but it's basically a smart campaign for all the networks. Instead of just being a smart display campaign or like a dynamic search ad campaign, like it's on shopping, the GDN, it's on YouTube, it's in Gmail, like it's all the placements and it's just one campaign that has all of them.
Wow.
So if you can figure out how to use that campaign to get in front of all those different networks and do that well for yourself, you'll be there before your competition is. And then when your competition is like slowly ramping up, you'll already be well off to the races. So the next step is to kind of figure out how to use the tools that you're given, even if some of the control that we had in the past has gone away. They're trying to make things useful. They're trying to make it so anybody can just click a button and go.
Right.
They phrase it as good for small businesses, but that just basically means people who don't have time to learn how to do it. So we'll take care of it for you. We got you.
Or don't have budget for a marketing agency.
Right.
But more importantly, phasing out the marketing agencies as that dependent source to be able to have the rudder on that campaign.
Yeah. So I think that once you're able to pay attention and adapt to those, like I think that that's going to be the biggest thing. Again, like they're not going to take away your ability to advertise on Google. Google is still an advertising company when it really comes down to it. They're not going to just shut that down. They need to be able to find ways to make money from you, but you need to use the tools that they give us because it's their platform. They own the platform.
Right.
You don't get to bring your own toys to the sandbox. You get to do what they have and figure out how to do it the best you can. So.
I hear there's a continual theme here of just don't complain about it. Just learn how to adapt.
Yeah. And I think it's important. That's why we stress learn other channels, because if these changes do negatively impact you, then you can shift your budget to somewhere else or try something else that's going to work.
Sure.
It doesn't have to stay on Google or Facebook. So it's just know the landscape of what's out there.
When we were talking about something earlier, I think it was in the privacy discussion that we had, I think one of your questions was, do you think the reason that the platforms are changing the way that they're tracking is because of user uprising, or is it because of like the bad press and then legal aspects and that kind of stuff?
Right.
The only time anybody is going to do anything because of user uprising is not because you complained, it's because you left.
Right.
So the only time that you're going to be able to get Google to make like categorical changes is if advertisers take their budget away and put it other places, because then they'll realize, we took something away that they wanted, that sort of thing. It's the same sort of thing with Facebook. They're like, well, why don't they just change Facebook? It's like, because you're still on it. There's no incentive for them to change because you're still using it. You're just complaining about Facebook on Facebook, which is what they want because it's negative sentiment and it's engagement and blah, 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 whatever. So like the only way to make any change is not to complain about it.
Just leave.
Just leave. So learn a new platform. Maybe start advertising on TikTok. Maybe start advertising on, Snapchat, something like that. Pinterest. Good Lord. Like, there's a number of platforms you can advertise on.
Yep.
So many now.
That's the only way that you're going to make any categorical changes. Take your budget someplace else.
Yeah. I mean, we know that. I mean, we affect change with our dollars, right?
Vote with your money.
Vote with your money. And that's literally what makes the entire world go around.
Yep.
So if you want to be able to see some level of stability, right, then be able to have that level of maturity and wherewithal to be able to move that cash someplace else and experiment and be willing to take a small upset in the flow of lead generation, what have you, be able to change things. But dovetailing into what we talked about earlier, be nimble, be able to have that new mindset that you are continually going to be experimenting. Nothing is sacrosanct. Nothing is going to be stable in this marketplace. You're always going to have to move. You're always going to have to change. Kind of like the Borg, man. You have to adjust, right? It always comes back to that.
It's like, I was just about to say that. I was like, somehow we always get there. I love it.
All right, some other changes that have affected in the paid space besides Google. Anything in Facebook that has evolved this year? Except for the
pretty big one.
I was gonna say the privacy stuff. The privacy
yeah.
stuff is the big thing. I would say that what that then impacts is your ability to track things. So the solution that they have given that people could get into if they're willing to spend the time and figure out how to do it developer-wise is Conversions API and tracking conversions from your server side. That's been a good stopgap for a lot of people because you still have your information. You just don't rely on the cookie to get there.
Right. So you're authenticating with your domain and...
Yeah, basically trying to take the user information based on what they gave you on the website and matching it up with how they engaged on Facebook recently based on the information they know.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like instead of using a cookie to get there, it's basically saying, we found Joe over here. And they're like, we have a Joe. And then that's pretty much how you're going to get there. I think that would be rather than getting back into the privacy discussion, the bigger change on Facebook is like how we are tracking conversions, and Conversion API is a way to help with that. And they're still developing new stuff because they have the SK ad network that they're working on. This also stuff is like a lot of it's over my head still because I think they're still trying to figure it out. So if they don't know what it is, then how am I going to know what it is?
And they'll change it 3 times.
Exactly. But I think that's one of those things that like continue to pay attention to how we can track any conversions, because that if you're going to track anything, you're going to have to adapt to whatever their new software is. So
the interface on Facebook is terrible.
It never hasn't been. It's always
even recently. I mean, they were just rolling out these new dashboards, and your session
just moved it. Yeah, they just set it apart. There was like a good 20 minutes where I could not find Ad Manager. I couldn't find it.
Because where the hell they put it?
Yeah, they took me to the old ads page that's like
it got lost.
There's a hamburger menu down there,
right,
and then
there it is. It's all the way over there. Yeah, no, it's terrible. It's so bad. It's so bad.
I can commiserate. That was a very stressful day trying to figure that thing out.
Totally.
Any other platforms that had some unique changes this year? LinkedIn?
I think early in the year they just added a few new targeting options based on some other LinkedIn information
and lead forms, right?
They've had those. Yeah, they've had those for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was Quora's lead forms that were coming out this year.
Those have been. I think that might have been a by last year thing too. Already, I know. 2020 doesn't exist. So
TikTok just came out with lead gen forms.
Really?
TikTok had recently because I did a video on it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So TikTok has lead gen forms that you can set up, and it's just if you've set up lead gen forms everywhere else,
you'll
figure it out.
Very
so
cool.
It's a very relatively easy, but like I said, there's a video on it. So if you need help, Paid Media Pros on YouTube.
And I don't know how old
way
they are.
Way to market yourself right there.
I do what I can.
I don't know how old they are, but I mean, I just discovered a couple months ago that Outbrain, if you're into native advertising, they have lead forms.
Oh, very cool.
So it's if we're talking about trying to find ways to collect as much first party data as possible from a native ad platform just to, I mean, because each of these channels have different targeting options. So there's some where you can still try to reach in front of your audience in new ways. If you, well, Pinterest doesn't have my targeting, but let's try Outbrain. Outbrain might have
That's
an
interesting.
option. So I'd look at that in terms of different ways that we can get first party information.
All right. Again, all right. There's the key right there. Getting more first party information, getting it to your website, understanding that you now have your job is to collect that data and be able to understand and understand the behavior on your website and the behavior on the different platforms that you're bringing those customers in from. So that has to be par for the course going into next year. With what you've experienced this year, this has been a pretty challenging year in the paid ad space, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty volatile. It's been also volatile in the SEO space as well. Everything's a hot mess right now.
Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit.
It's fine.
Going into 2022, what can we take what we learned, and also what can we prognosticate of what's going to be? What should we be investing in if you had the roulette table out here? What numbers are you going to be betting on here when it comes down to tactics and platforms?
I think the takeaway that I would have going forward is that everything should be on the table channel wise. Like any channel that you think people are on, you should be there. I have some clients that I talk to that I say like, we need to be on TikTok, and they're like, our audience isn't on TikTok. It's like, yes, they are. They're just not thinking about work when they're there, but they are there, like 100%. And think about ways to engage people, and don't try to just stick all your eggs in one basket, basically, or just like the duopoly, whatever, Google, Facebook, that sort of thing. Right. Be flexible about all that. But I will say that whenever you were talking about that, and I'll let you answer soon, it's fine. The one thing I was thinking about whenever we were talking about like user behavior and engaging with them, if you want a free tool to know how people use your website, you can use Microsoft Clarity. It's got heat maps, recordings. You can segment stuff by the source that they came from or from a certain page. It's
Have you used it yet?
Yeah. It's awesome. It's an easy tool to just add on your site. We just add it like on any client that comes in. It's like, well, we don't know what people are doing. It's like, we'll figure it out. And it integrates with Google Tag Manager. Like it was easy enough to the point where I went back and did it again because I didn't think it took, because it was like boop, boop, and then that was done. And it's a super great tool, and it'll help you know how people are engaging with your site, where you're going. It's kind of the stuff we were talking about at conferences. You'll know what gaps you have in information based on where people are trying to go and what it seems like they're trying to get. It's like, okay, well, it's clear that we're missing this because they're trying to do this thing. So let's put that in here. So that would be an easy tool to roll out, and it's free.
Yeah, it is free, and it gives Hotjar a run for its money.
It really does. I don't need Hotjar anymore, to be honest.
Really?
I loved Hotjar. I used to tell everybody to get it, and it's like it costs a little bit of money, but it is what it is. But I don't have a need for it anymore, honestly.
Really?
I'd rather just use Clarity.
Filtering options are that good inside of Clarity?
For the way that I use it,
Got it.
Yeah, and you can, the way you can pause and jump to specific moments of where that user's interacting, it's for free. It's crazy good.
Yeah.
But like kind of going back to what Michelle said about TikTok, and just, well, my audience isn't on there. Yes, they are. Kind of reminds me of what you said in the last show too, of like people are on multiple devices. So like doing a lot of like the TV buys, we mentioned Hulu, like the amount of cool ad formats that Hulu has, you could just Google Hulu ads, ad formats or whatever. And then you'll find the page. There's dozens of ways that while someone's watching Hulu, they could see an ad either with QR codes or links, because the person's watching the ad with their phone. So it's that different mentality of keeping on top of someone's mind. I think that is important. The brand building that we're talking about. We have more clients interested in that type of TV-based advertising. That's why I'm excited to get into the Roku one, just to get different ways to get in front of users where, yes, they might not be at work, but you're getting in front of them at that moment, like that another touch point that they're thinking about you instead of whatever they were fooling around with on their phone. So it's that attention-grabbing content.
And the interesting thing is, if you take it kind of full hilt here on getting to that fractional audience that is using Roku or Hulu, you don't have to hard press sales ads. You can just be there. And I mean, literally, the creative can actually be getting into the space where they're enjoying the show along with you, type of thing. I mean, these are the spaces in which you don't have to go straight for the jugular of a sale.
Right.
You're it's much better to actually soft sell the brand based on the lifestyle connection that the consumers are having, because that's just more of an annoyance than anything else. If I'm actually looking to binge watch Squid Game, right? Why do I want to see a plumber's ad right there?
And why are you hard selling me on it?
Now, but if you have that fractional intent and the ability to move that instead of an interest level, then that plumber could actually be enjoying Squid Game too. Bam, there's a connection right there, right?
That's exactly. I don't remember the brand. I have the cheap version of Hulu, so I have to watch the commercial or two in the breaks. But there was, I wish I could remember the brand. It was a QR code commercial and be like, look, we know this is an ad. We're sorry. But like the talent in it, I mentioned the QR code. They literally like chin on top and they filmed it so they knew where the QR code was going to be. And they're like, they were just having fun with it. And they're like, we know where. And I was like, this is fantastic. Like, I love this. I don't mind watching this commercial. This is what I want.
Make it entertaining.
Like, yes.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, that is the brand building. Because it didn't work too well because I don't remember the brand.
Well, you remember the ad, though.
I remember the ad. When I see it again, I'll be like, that's it.
That's the one.
I still don't need that insurance code, but
Right. Thank you so much.
Well, any other recommendations going into 2022 from a tactic and strategy level that our listeners and businesses that are hiring agencies, what should they be asking of their agencies going into 2022?
How much are we learning from this information while we still have it? Whether it's collecting information, whether it's using the ETAs to find out, test different messaging. Michelle had the idea that we did in a different presentation of we're testing more ad messages now, labeling them, grouping them of what type of message it is.
Right.
So when we can collectively look at a high level overview of what type of ad messaging worked, then we'll have a better understanding from the ETAs to put them into our dynamic or RSAs or automated ads. So it's learn, because we know by next year or even 2023, when this stuff goes away, we can look at it for a little bit within the platforms, but to have that information now to implement all the new strategies and the new technologies that are coming out, I think that's a big part.
That's huge, actually.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I have been, just based on the types of accounts that I've been working on recently, one of the things that I keep coming back to is how are we finding new audience members? Like, I'm not talking about how are we building new audiences for retargeting, all that kind of stuff, but how are we getting the brand in front of other people? Because I feel like in the same way that we kind of created a monster of everybody being able to track conversions, all this kind of stuff, at the same time of being able to track those conversions, everybody wants bottom of funnel stuff. Everybody wants somebody to be searching for your brand name. Cool. Same. But you have to have gotten in front of them and expressed something and told them who you are at some point. I think that I've just gotten to where, like, I'm happy to run search campaigns and do that kind of stuff, and I know the value of those, and I would never trade those in for anything.
Sure.
But whenever people talk about growth, they're like, can we add new keywords? It's like, why don't we add a new channel where we're prospecting and getting in front of new people and testing how we can get more people brought into this process? I think people are so focused on bottom of funnel, all the ROI metrics that are there, that they just kind of miss the forest for the trees because they're not going out and generating new customers. It doesn't have to be the hard sell at the top like we talked about. It can easily just be a brand play, getting in front of the right people, just like a very soft touch to bring people further down, because you don't always need a plumber, right?
Sure.
But when you need a plumber, you want to know just a name comes to your mind. So if you're the person who's been advertising a little bit and in a fun way that engages on whatever platform it is, whether it was on Hulu or whether it's on TikTok or whatever it is, when that person needs a plumber, they'll remember you because you were in front of them, and then they'll search for your name, and that's how they'll come down to you. Like, it can't always be a one-to-one, oh, they watched my ad on TikTok and then they came to the site and they converted right away. That's just not how anybody uses the internet. So it needs to be something where build an audience. Otherwise, you're never going to have a bottom of the funnel because you didn't have a top of the funnel.
Always be prospecting, and also meet them without that hard sell. Be able to explore your brand, be able to share the brand with whatever that is. Mature it. Be able to actually have a brand.
Right. Yeah. Have a brand.
Oh my
please.
Lord.
Yeah.
So we definitely see that with newer companies. We've definitely talked about, like, startups have come to us for like business, and part of me is like, I don't want to take them up anymore unless they understand the importance of building a brand. Because it's, as a startup, it's hard. It's like, how come no one's signing up for you? Because they don't know who you are.
They have no idea who you are.
They might know who your product is. It's like they don't trust you. You have other companies out there that do similar stuff that
Right.
is like, you have to work towards building that trust. That's an investment. So I think it's something that you have to understand. If people don't look for the keywords around your industry, if they don't know who your brand is, you're going to have to invest to build the awareness, to make people want to go to the bottom of funnel searches and search for your brand name or search for your product keywords or whatever. So it's that understanding of where do you exist within your own marketplace and where do you need to be? Can you just do all bottom of the funnel with your budget? Cool. If you have no volume, you have to invest in building that volume.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always get such a kick out of with startups because they usually are generating something. They've created something that nobody has ever thought of yet. So nobody even knows to search for it. But then on top of that, they come up with a name that looks like a cat walked across the keyboard. And they're like, why is nobody searching for our name? It's like, they can't spell it or pronounce it. I don't know what it is. It's got 17 consonants in it. So yeah, it's always difficult with startups and stuff. But
They should know. They should just know how to find them. Right?
obviously.
Because there's a need out there. That's why they built the
There's a
bloody
need.
thing.
That's why they did it.
All righty. Well, this is great information. I truly appreciate the time today spending with the first segment and the second segment. Hopefully our audience is as appreciative, because I certainly want to hear from them about what you've provided today. It's good to be able to have this type of conversation going into the next year. I mean, for the most part, if you don't have your holiday strategy put together, then try it out next year.
You just start
It's not
planning
shipping
2022
now.
at this point. No, it's November. Like just skip it.
Yeah, just go to sleep. We'll see you next year.
Yep.
Any final thoughts for our digital marketing audience? There are some SEOs in there, right?
Okay.
But what are your thoughts to be able to share into 2022 and 2023 with everything that we're going through? Just consolidate it in one sentence.
Adapt.
That was a word.
That's a word.
Damn.
That's also a sentence. At the end of it.
Period.
Adapt. Learn and adapt.
Mine is adapt better.
Adapt more. Adapter.
More better.
Adapt 3000.
Adapter.
No, it's expand your knowledge, and it seems so broad. And I've probably said it every single time I've been on this show. It's one, in terms of enjoying my work. It's if I just had to work only in Google Ads,
Right.
And I did at some point. It was like, but now you can test and do different fun things with different creative.
Sure.
I think that's the best part, and we see better results when we're not just giving Google all their money. So it's no matter how many channels you're in, there's probably another one you can test. So I would do expansion. That's my sentence
That's the
and
longest
word.
sentence that I've ever heard.
Yeah, I'm really thinking that you didn't follow the rules there.
No. There were a number of ellipses and just kind of
Yeah.
like dashes and whatever.
Parentheticals.
It's a run-on
Those
sentence.
are freaking listicles. What the hell?
There you go, SEO. You can make listicles in the blog. That's a thing now.
That gives me some rich snippet fodder right there. All right. Well, we certainly thank you for coming in today. And at any point in time, Michelle, you're always welcome to come down.
Lovely. I'll be here every week.
Joe,
No,
I don't have a punch card.
Don't beat my record.
Joe's been here 4 times, 3 in person. So I guess it's a coffee.
And I live 4.5 hours away. So.
There is something broken in this man's head. I don't know what it is. Well, we certainly appreciate you coming in.
Thank
we
you.
will absolutely give you a punch card in one way, shape, or form.
Yes.
You know, the 5th visit gets you a Slurpee or something. I don't know.
I'll take it.
We want to make sure our listeners and watchers follow these guys on social. You can find Joe at Milwaukee PPC and Michelle at Michelle SEM and at Paid Media Pros on Twitter, Facebook, Paid Media Pros, LinkedIn, / Paid Media Pros. So you can find Michelle over at Michelle SEM on LinkedIn, Paid Media Pros on Instagram, as well as Paid Media Pros on YouTube. And that's where the treasure trove is for all things Paid Media Pros. So we wish you all the best luck in the world going into next year. And kudos for 3 years in the Paid Media Pros. You guys are doing a bang-up job with the content that you're providing us. So we do appreciate it greatly.
That's awesome.
All right. That's it. Make sure you don't miss the first segment where we got into privacy and issues regarding strategy that you need to adopt with the third-party cookie loss. Check out all that. And don't forget to like and subscribe to The Edge of the Web on YouTube. And if you're really feeling up today, hey, why don't you give us a review on iTunes? That's how we feed the algorithm and get to the top of the list. Thanks to our sponsor, Site Strategics. Make sure that you check out all the must-see videos over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Do not miss our news of the week each and every week with Morty Oberstein. It gets uncomfortable, but yeah, you got to commiserate with me because it's very, very difficult to handle that, guys. So jump into the news podcast each and every week from all of us over at Edge. Stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.